Hello, and welcome back to my channel. It's been quite a while, so I'm just getting back into the groove. So the first video might be sloppy, but welcome back to my channel. And today is going to be one of the buying advice in great detail sort of video. So the budget we are handling over here is under 10,000 rupees, or the equivalent of under 130 USD for a Android smartphone. So let's just get started with the video. So I know that this price point looks desperate, but there is a market for devices in this price point, and there are people who are buying devices because their basic necessity is to have an Android device to either get used to WhatsApp or do digital payments, or they need a camera for work or whatever it is. There's a lot of things that go on in this department that I really did not know about because I never looked into this under 10,000 rupee budget. So I just scoured through the internet for all of the smartphone brands that are selling in India and limited it to the device that have been launched in the past 12 months. So how many devices did I get? Around 30 devices. Can you believe that? Around 30 devices. So we have devices from Vivo, Oppo, Realme, Redmi, Poco, Motorola, Lava and Tecno. Lava, they're still making Android smartphones. Tecno, I never heard about this brand at all ever, and Micromax as well, who is also selling devices that have been launched in the past 12 months. So these three manufacturers were a surprise to me, but I'm gonna put all the list of all the smartphone brands and the devices that they have under sale over here. So I'm going to hit the price point of under 10,000 rupees. So as long as the base model of that smartphone sits under 10,000 rupees or at 9,990 at the lowest storage and just gives a storage and RAM bump to the next tier, I'm going to include this in this category. So I'm going to ask you to pause this video and tell me, out of all of these devices, which device do you think will win in this category? Pause it here, go comment, and then we can continue with the video. Hopefully you all made good guesses. So let's just get started with the categories that I am going to consider and the categories I'm not going to consider. Starting off with the things that I'm going to ignore for this. So I'm not going to consider NFC, stereo speakers, fast charging, metal frame of the phone device, 3.5mm jack because all of them have, micro SD card support because all of them have, Wi-Fi. I don't think any of these will have dual band AC. Even if they do, the target audience doesn't really require that, or it doesn't matter in use case. All of them have Bluetooth 4.2 and above, so it doesn't matter if you can pair more than one device unless you're looking for that specific feature. IP rating, none of them have. That's self-explanatory. And 5G. So I'm not going to include 5G because we don't even have the 5G rollout, and it will be quite a ways ahead until we get 5G rollout. And also 5G, most of these processors in these budget segments will not have the support for it inherently, so it's a bit of a toss-up. So I'm not going to consider those categories. So now let's jump into the categories that I am going to consider, and the first category is performance. This is obvious. So I have all the list of all the processors here, hopefully in front of my face, where editor Danish is doing all of that stuff, and I have the tier list. So the performance tier between each of these processors, if it is just around 2 or 3%, I'm going to put it on the same tier. If it is more than 10% relative, I'm going to put it on the next tier up or on next tier down. So I got 5 tiers out of it, so it is going to be 5 points for the topmost and 1 point for the bottommost. Make sense? I do hope all the devices, 29 devices, sit on the screen, and even if they don't, I'll have the breakdown in the comment in the description below. So the devices which get the maximum amount of points will be having the processor of the G85, the Tiger T6112 and the Tiger T700. So the rest of the devices gets lower and lower points. The second category that I am going to consider for this is RAM. So having 2 gigs of RAM is not acceptable in this day and age, and having 32 gigs of inbuilt storage is also not acceptable because the operating system takes a lot of storage out and you will not have any storage, and sometimes you'll have to sacrifice a SIM slot to put in a micro SD card. So 32 gigs is not advisable and cannot be forgiven. So all of those devices which have one of these two criteria gets -1 point. Hopefully these devices survive through my rigorous point system. So the next point I'm going to do is 90 Hz refresh rate. So I'm singling this specific feature out because only 3 devices out of the 29 devices have that. So that is a bonus that they're giving at this price point, and it is a noticeable use case scenario. So those three get 1 point each. Now out of all of these, I considered not taking up the screen as a category because all of them have 720p screens, but one of them has a 1080p screen, which is really huge for this price point, especially because the thing I've noticed is all of these devices are either 6.4 or 6.5 inches in size. So because of the large size, the PPI matters a lot when you're jumping from 720p to 1080p, and it is noticeable. So only Technospark 8 Pro gets 1 bonus point for this feature over here. Now coming on to the external of this device, to the back, to the cameras. So the most important feature that you will require on a phone, even in this price point, will be how good a camera is and how much money is wasted by the company by giving you gimmicks. So the gimmicks that I'm talking about is the 2MP or the 5MP, the macro and the depth of field cameras that they're including just to increase the number of cameras in their advertising. I don't like that. I'm going to give them, all of them, -1 point for just one additional useless camera and -2 if they have both. So the Pocos and the Motos lose out to 2 points, and one of the Realme also loses on 2 points from that. Now coming on to the selfie camera, the camera that you face, that you look at, a few of these have 720p 30 fps recording for the selfie camera, which is not acceptable in this day and age because the competitors have given 1080p 30 recording in this price point as well. So giving 720 there is no reasonable explanation that can be given to cut down the selfie cameras so much. So I'm going to give all of them -1 point over here, and then we come to the battery. Something that I've observed, because in the flagships 5000 mAh is really rare because you give that space to the processor and give more performance out, but in this budget segment all of the devices have 5000 mAh. Some even have 6 or 7 in the upper tiers, not in this budget but in the next budget that I'll talk about in the next video, which is the 10 to 20,000. So stay subscribed to my channel to watch that video as well. But back to the topic, in this sub 10,000 category, we have two devices that give 4230. So both of these are the Oppo models, the A16e and the A16K, but I don't know what the difference between these two devices is, because on paper they are the same except for the processor, which is really confusing to me because they look like the same thing. Even the outside they look the same, so that's a bit confusing and a rant. But moving on, those two devices will get -1 point for not having a 5000 mAh battery. Coming to fast charging, this is something really useful and gives you a lot of flexibility in how you charge your devices. So only 3 devices here have fast charging, which is the one of the Motos and 2 Techno phones. So all of these 3 get +1 point. Now fingerprint sensor is the next thing where a few devices falter, because most of the devices have given a rear mounted fingerprint or a side mounted fingerprint, so it's on the back or on the side in the power button, but a few devices have not given that in this price point. Some of them do cut it down in terms of cost factor and give it a bit lower price point, but if the price point is just less than 1000 rupees or 500 rupee difference, that is a feature that people would always upgrade to get because it's a lot more convenient and it's a lot more used. So all of those devices get -1 point. Now this final category is a bit of a contentious one because it's about the radio. I don't know how much people listen to the radio even to this day and how much people don't require it. I for one haven't used it in quite a long time, so I don't know how much it impacts you, but the devices which do not have the FM radio, I'm giving them all -1 point here, under the condition that I'm going to have 2 results. So one result will be the overall category winner where all of the points are tallied, and one result where the radio points are not tallied, because if you don't require a radio on your phone, then the tally will not work for you. So I'm going to work with both of those categories over here and give both the results. So if you tally it up, we have quite a few wins. So the first place, the second place and third place. The first place has only one device in both of the categories. So we have the Technospark 8 Pro. Literally, I have never used this brand and I learned about this brand quite a few days ago, and it's surprising that it has won this category. And even I was rooting for one of the Motorola phones, but it did not win because of the extra cameras that they lost out on. Now in place 2 in the overall category, we have 2 devices, the Moto E40 and the Technospark 8C. Again, another Technospark. On the without the radio category, we have another phone that is added to the second tier, which is the Realme C33. Now third place is where a lot of devices come up, the Realme C33 over here, TechnoSpark 9, the Vivo Y15s and C, and the Realme Nazro 50i Prime. Wow, that's a long name. And on the without the radio category, we have two more devices added to that list, which is the Moto E32 and the Micromax Into C. Micromax is in the top 3 in a segment, even though the company is never had such a low popularity ever, and it's quite a shocking thing that it's dwindling so long and so low in the reputation segment. So Motorola pulled out a good one, and they are in the well-known price range of this, and the Realmes and the Vivos are supposed to be here because they are targeting the budget price segment. So the breakdown is really peculiar because a few things that I have to not talk about because most of them don't mention it if they have Gorilla Glass 3, so I've not used that category as well. And the Type-C or the micro USB fight, I'm not going to include that over here because it's an even mesh, and most of the time you're buying this as a first device and it will have the USB cable in the box, hopefully. I don't even know how many of these have a charging brick in the box whenever they quote the fast charging capability. I don't know if that capability is included in the box, so that's a caveat again that you need to have a look at. But this is a really interesting segment because so many devices counting up and fighting for each other for the market share. So congratulations TechnoSpark 8 Pro for this win. The Moto and the Techno and the Realme to come in second, and in third again the Realmes, the Technos, the Vivos, Motorola, and the most surprising, the Micromax. So I am not affiliated with any of these brands. I have not received any samples. I've not tested any of these in hand. So all of these observations that I've made has been done using only total specs, raw specs on paper. So your mileage may vary, so I'm going to advise all of you to go and check out these devices or check out YouTube videos where individual devices have been reviewed by people, or go and check them out in showrooms before you make the purchasing decision. So that's a fair disclaimer for all of you to be careful when you make a purchasing decision. It's going to be interesting because all of these prices are going to drop again because of the Amazon sale and the Flipkart sale that is coming up in 2 weeks time. So hopefully if anyone has to buy a device in this price point, hopefully I steered you in the right direction. So comment down below if I helped you, or if you have any more doubts about these devices, and click on subscribe and click on the bell icon to receive notifications on all of my videos. Give that thumbs up if you like it, or thumbs down if you don't. And as always, stay home, stay safe. I'm gonna see you guys in the next one. Peace.